What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, and Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right. For everyone who's tuning in, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel and help make the show the best that it can be. I'm surprised I didn't talk about this one yet. I'm surprised I haven't, but I figure this is a perfect time since we're headed down the stretch of the regular season. Weeks after the trade deadline took place, and we saw a wave of trades. It was funny. There was a time in the NBA where you didn't see trades with this level of frequency, but in this era of so-called player empowerment, man, as they say, man, at that point, man, all bets are off. And that's pretty much what we've been witnessing, particularly over these past 7 seasons. But I want to talk about something, man. There's been a lot of misconceptions, man, and hyperbole and narratives that have been engineered by a lot of talking heads, man, and people out there in the NBA biosphere, as I like to call it. And I wanted to compare the differences between the trade by the Lakers for Paul Gasol and the trade by the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Now, legend will have it that, Paul Gasol, that was an unfair trade, and blase. But when you really pull back the layers to it, man, you see a stark difference between how the Lakers acquired Gasol versus how the Lakers acquired Anthony Davis. And how successful Gasol and AD were with their original team before the trades went down. Now let's go back and take a look at Paul Gasol. First of all, prior to trading for Paul Gasol, this was midway of the 2007-2008 season. So first of all, the Lakers, after starting their rebuild from the post-Shaq years, that started in 2004-2005 season. This was the same year that they drafted Andrew Bynum, the youngest player ever drafted into the NBA. And then the next year, they would bring in rookies such as Jordan Foremore, Sasha Vujacic. Then you had Luke Walton, who we drafted in 2003, right? And then going into that 07-08 season, we brought back Derek Fisher, who had played 2 years with the Golden State Warriors after the 04 season where the Lakers lost to the Pistons in the final. Then he played 1 season with the Utah Jazz, who his leadership and experience helped them propel to the Western Conference Finals that year, losing to the Spurs, the eventual NBA champions for 07. And then we did make a move. We acquired Vladimir Ramatovich, who was a shooter out of Seattle with the Sonics. But you can see the team moving in a very positive direction. The Lakers, prior to Paul Gasol's debut with the team, we were in first place in the Pacific Division with a record of like 30-16. It was like 30-15, 30-16. Bynum was having his best season up until that point, averaging like 14 points, 10 rebounds. But he suffered his first significant injury to his knee. I believe that was like his right knee. And he would go on to miss the remainder of the season, including the playoffs. That's the only reason we acquired Paul Gasol. But if you look at what the Lakers included in that trade to acquire Paul Gasol, it was not a fleece job. But the reason that they, portray it as such is because they knew all Kobe needed was a complimentary second option out of the post. And Paul Gasol fit that role to a T. Now, also, Paul Gasol was playing for a Memphis Grizzlies team who had 2 consecutive losing seasons where they won less than 20 games. And Memphis was looking to trade Paul Gasol to kind of start their rebuild, start all over again. So they acquired Paul Gasol for Kwame Brown. The reason why Kwame Brown was included in that trade is because of the emergence of Andrew Bynum. And for the most part, I would say, Kwame Brown did a solid job. But Bynum started to emerge. Okay, Marc Gasol, who we had just drafted. He was young, but he was not part of the Laker rotation. And then Jarvis Crittenden. We included 2 first-round picks, the 2008 first-round pick and our 2010 first-round pick. So you only had 2 draft picks that was 2 years out from the time of them trading for Gasol. Only 2 first-round picks. Okay. So the Lakers advanced to the finals that year. We're going into the season. I looked at them as going to the second round, the conference semifinals. We get Paul Gasol. We go to the finals. And we lose to the Boston Celtics in 6 games. But the thing of it was, the way I looked at it, even though that loss was a trip, boy, even though you felt the pain of that, but they was a year ahead of schedule. And they went to the finals without Bynum. Okay. Nobody predicted the Lakers going, if anything, San Antonio was looked to possibly repeat, or the Phoenix Suns would break through finally and reach the finals. You didn't have the Lakers going to the finals that year. So they was a year ahead of schedule. So the way I always looked at it was, when we started the rebuild after the post-Shaq years, 2009 would have culminated in the 5-year completion of their rebuild. So 2009 was the target year anyway for us to vie for the championship. And of course, with Paul Gasol, we went back to back in 2009 and 2010. We vied for a 3-peat, and we fell short of that effort for the 3-peat, losing to Dallas in the conference semifinals in 4 games. But if you look at their run, they won 57 games in 2008, 65 wins in 2009, 57 wins in 2010, 57 wins in 2011. And then during the lockout year of 2012, we finished with a record of like 41 and 25, because I think they had a 66 game schedule. I think it was like 41 and 25 or 42 or 40 and 26. But nonetheless, and then the last year, we went to the first round. That was the year that they traded for Dwight Howard, coming off back surgery. And then Steve Nash, who was a shell of himself, dealing with back injuries. He only played like a fourth of the season anyway. And then Kobe, trying to keep the team afloat, during there playing 48 minutes a game down the stretch, he wound up rupturing his Achilles. And then Paul Gasol, he left as a free agent to sign with the Chicago Bulls. While he was still playing at a high level. So what I'm saying is, that's what you call a sensible trade, because you're a final piece away. And you had a long-standing run where you was in the hunt, or either you won the title for numbers of years. You see what I'm saying? That was like a good 5-6 year run where you constantly winning on average, 50, maybe we'll say about 58 games a year on average, right? Okay. Now let's go to the AD trade. And that was a situation too with Paul Gasol, where the Lakers didn't mortgage their future off, because the players who they included in that trade, they were not part of their regular rotation anyway. And only after certain players emerged, like the Andrew Bynums, the Jordan Formores, and the Sasha Vujicic, at that point, that was like, okay, we can move on from these players. You see what I'm saying? And then Marc Gasol, he went on to become one of the best centers in the league in Memphis, winning Defensive Player of the Year. I believe that was 2013 or something? I think 2014 Defensive Player of the Year. One of those years. And then him and Zach Randolph from the Portland Trailblazers, and Mike Conley and Tony Allen, helped Memphis reach the conference finals in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Only to lose the Golden State Warriors, the eventual champion. Now let's look at the Anthony Davis trade. Now, mind you, as I mentioned, Memphis was looking to move on from Paul Gasol after having 2 consecutive losing seasons, winning less than 20 games. They was looking to trade him. The Lakers didn't poach or steal him away. Let that be known. Let's look at the Anthony Davis trade. Now, Anthony Davis was coming off an MVP level season in 2018, where he and Rajon Rondo helped lead the Pelicans to a first-round upset of the Portland Trailblazers with, prime Damian Lillard, with prime C.J. McCollum, and swept them in the first round, and then faced the defending champion Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant in the second round. And that was a tough 5-game series where AD was averaging like over 30 points, like 16 rebounds. I mean, he was playing off the charts, man. And only in that game 5 did Golden State kind of run away with it at home to close the series out. Now, mind you, that was the same year that they traded for DeMarcus Cousins, where he and AD was forming this perfect tandem as the new Twin Towers, like Keem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson during the Houston Rocket days in the mid-'80s. If Boogie Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, maybe they advanced further and they finished with a better record and a higher seed. Also, the Pelicans were looking and in position to offer Anthony Davis the first ever Supermax contract that he turned down because as I like to say, the plan was already in place for him to request a trade going into that next year. Now, he was averaging 28 and 12, 29 and 11, 28 points a game, 12 rebounds a game. It was like a monster leader in blocks per game. Doing his last, prior to what turned out to be his last full season in New Orleans. He was playing MVP caliber basketball. He was the only player in the league that was top 3 in MVP consideration and for Defensive Player of the Year. He goes into that next year, 2018-2019, as the favorite to win league MVP based off what he did in that postseason in 2018. The Pelicans start off with a record of 4-0. And he was paired with Julius Randle, who signed there as a free agent that offseason after being released and let go by the Lakers after playing 82 games for the Purple and Gold. And, going into preseason, many insiders predicted that Anthony Davis and Randle could represent the best front court duo in the league. AD giving you 28 and 12. Randle, once he finally, discovered his game and broke through as a player, he was averaging 20 and 10. So that's like 48 points right there from two guys on your front court. They started off season 4-0. Then out of the sky blue, like months later, Anthony Davis requests a trade. But this is the kicker. He did so under contract. And he was eventually traded to the Lakers. Going into that next offseason, not necessarily for the sake of the Lakers, but to help the Hurricanes succeed and win. See, AD was poached from his franchise. Paul Gasol was not. And as I said, the players including Paul Gasol trade from the Lakers, they were not fixtures of their rotation. And the 2 draft picks that they included in that trade, that trade was only 2 years out from the time that their trade was made. And the future was not mortgaged. Paul Gasol was the final piece to the puzzle. The AD trade was the total reverse. He was under contract, and they mortgaged the future away to get him by including 2 cornerstone starters representing that young core, and Brandon Ingram, who improved from his rookie year by doubling his scoring output in his second year. And me personally, entering his third year, if he didn't have to play with the Hurricane and wasn't didn't have to deal with all that nonsense, I believe he would have averaged well over 20 points, around like 21, 22 points a game. That was the projection because he started to really develop that mid-range game, you see, which is a staple of a prototype player like Brandon Ingram. Okay, so he was the number 2 pick of his draft in 2016. He only finished 3 years with the Lakers and he was traded. Lonzo Ball, who was selected number 2 pick in the 2017 draft, Brandon Ingram number 2 pick in the 2016 draft. Lonzo Ball was included in that trade too. Now, there was a lot of hoopla around Lonzo Ball, too much hype. But when the smoke cleared, he had a productive rookie season where his statistical production was carbon copy to Jason Kidd's rookie season when he was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks in 1994. Lonzo Ball averaged about 10.5 points a game, over 7 rebounds a game, over 7 assists a game, and he had a low assist to turnover ratio, and his he was averaging like close to 1.7, 1.8 steals a game, and helped generate the number 2 pace team in basketball as the youngest squad in the NBA. He was included in that trade. And then Josh Hart, selected in the same draft as Lonzo Ball, I believe like late in the first round, like around like the 28th pick, 29th pick, somewhere around there. He was coming off a national championship with the Villanova Wildcats, who he was teammates of Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, who all three now play with the New York Knicks. But this is the kicker. They included unprotected first-round picks in alternate years over a 6-year span from 2019 through 2025. And in the midst of that duration, the Lakers will include more first-round picks to facilitate more trades, including the 21st pick for Russell Westbrook, including the 27th first-round pick to essentially bring back D'Angelo Russell, who was drafted by the Lakers in 2015. So we've given them so many draft picks that to get Luka Doncic, they had to trade the very player who they mortgaged the future to get, another draftee in Max Christie, who's coming into his own, and the 29 first-round pick. And as I say, during this super team era, during this era of player empowerment, young talent became devalued, draft picks became devalued. And there's no better example of that than what has happened to the Lakers during the past 7 years since bringing the Hurricane to this franchise. But this is the kicker. Kobe Bryant with Paul Gasol as his number 2 player. They went to 3 straight finals and went back to back and fell short of a three-peat. They did, because it's very hard to do that. But nonetheless, they had a run where they won 57 games, 65 games, 57 games, 57 games. During the lockout, they went like 41-25. And then last year, when Kobe injured his Achilles, they did finish they finished as the 7th seed, if I'm not mistaken, but they did finish with a winning record of 45-37. But if people had been healthy, if Kobe hadn't had to play all the minutes, they would have won 50-some games. I'm not saying they would have won the title that year, but they would have finished with a better record than that. But nonetheless, they had a more successful. They had what you call a legitimate run, where you was always right there. Because of the nature of the AD trade, you start really operating in reverse. It was an inverse process. Because after you got AD, you still had to fill the rest of the roster out. After you got Anthony Davis, you really only had 5 or 6 players under contract going into their next year. So you had to sign a lot of veteran players to fill out their roster, which included Dwight Howard, who was not their first choice that all season. They actually signed DeMarcus Cousins, who had recovered from that Achilles, but he injured his ACL right after he signed with the Lakers and missed the whole year. So Dwight Howard was really a backup. He was an alternate choice to play the center spot. Okay. And then you signed Danny Green. He was gone after 1 year. Rajon Rondo was gone after 1 year. Avery Bradley was gone after 1 year. What are we talking about? Deion Waiters was gone after that season. J.R. Smith was gone after that year. And during the so-called era of the Hurricane and AD, all they got out of it was 1 year that culminated in the bubble. And their run was sporadic, and it was too much fluctuation. Because going into the next year, they was after making more moves, they was favored to repeat. They lost in the first round to the Phoenix Suns, who went on to go to the finals. And then the following year, because of the fact they had no talent of their own, they had to rely on bringing in and forming up the oldest team in the history of professional basketball since the league's inception in 1946, where they fielded 5 top 75 players. And you had these prognosticators saying that they were going to not only win it all, but win 70 games. And they fought the whole season, went to kaput within 40 games. They finished with a record of 33-49. They missed. Not only did they not make the playoffs, not only did they not finish with a winning record, they didn't make the play-in, and they finished with 2 less wins than the young core driven Lakers of 2018. The malaise carried over to the next year. This is after you traded for Russell Westbrook. And it's not Russell Westbrook's fault as to what happened, by the way. Then they started the season off 1-5, 2-10. And they would have missed the playoffs for the second straight year. And then, miraculously, a trade went down for Russell Westbrook to bring in a slew of young players and bringing back D'Angelo Russell. They go on a little mini, playoff run, playing teams that were injured or not playing the right way. And they ran to the Denver Nuggets. And we all know what happened. And now, AD is gone and traded. So when I look at it, Kobe and Powell had a better run than the Hurricane and AD. It's not even a question. It's not even a question. I can sit here and say the Lakers got the most out of that experience, that run with Kobe and Powell. They achieved exactly what was expected of them. Not this experience here the past 5.5 years. They underperformed because every year they was hyped up to win it all. And see, this whole thing started off on a bad note because the very first year with the Hurricane, the expert said he was going to lead the young core Lakers to the Western Conference Finals. Not only did they not make the playoffs, not only did they not finish with a winning record, they finished below 500. I believe they finished in 10th place in the West. 9th or 10th place in the West with a record of 37-45. So this thing, it already started off on a bad note. So when I look at it, when I look at the comparison, there is no comparison. And like I say, to get AD, they had to mortgage the future. Paul Gasol was the final piece to the puzzle. AD is the more dominant player. But Kobe won more with Gasol than the Hurricane did with AD. That's why AD is gone. And Paul Gasol left on his own as a free agent to sign with the Chicago Bulls. There's no comparison. And that's why I say, with Paul Gasol being the perfect complement, I just, the 2009 Lakers, that championship run, it was, I'm telling you, man, it was a thing of beauty, man. Everybody played for each other. Everybody knew their role. It was so beautiful about it. They ran it back with the same team who lost to Boston in the finals. Really, the only significant move that they made was internal when Luke Walton offered to give up his starting position at the 3 to Trevor Ariza for the betterment of the team. because of Ariza's defensive ability. And then they did make a small trade mid-season, bringing in Shannon Brown, I believe, from the Cleveland Cavaliers. But that's because of his, his ability to, get out in transition and whatnot. Kind of, his athletic ability, and play some stout defense in spurts. But he won no score, nothing like that. A lot of people didn't even know who Shannon Brown was, as well as Trevor Ariza, But Kobe built that up, man. He built that confidence in Trevor Ariza, and that was it was like we took that same team, came back the next year and won a title. So I just want to really break that down, man. The dynamic between both those trades, and see, they was mad about the Gasol trade. They knew that's all Kobe needed, and then once they got that, man, Kobe's ready to rock and roll, and Kobe didn't recruit Paul Gasol. See what I'm saying? But the AD trade set a negative precedent in this league because you saw other superstars who followed, guys who like 1 year under their contract requesting trades. Paul George, James Harden, Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook. And then you saw a latest example of that with Bradley Beal, requesting a trade, go to Phoenix. KD, you know what I'm saying? But it all stems from basically, when you look at it, the Hurricane triggered this, man, because he poached a franchise player that was set to make a supermax, the first ever supermax that eventually Steph Curry became the first player to sign the supermax deal. It would have been Anthony Davis. See, everything was in line for AD to get the supermax. They was building a team around him, and his value was super high to where he was favored to win league MVP going into would turn out to be his last season in New Orleans. Now he'll never get an MVP. He'd be 32 years old. I think sometime this month, if I'm not mistaken, and he's on the back end of his prime. That's why I say he should have stayed in New Orleans. But in Memphis, they was looking to trade Paul Gasol to get the most value in return, as they were looking to start over because they was at the bottom of they weren't winning. They weren't even being competitive. They was, 19 wins, 18 wins. You know what I'm saying? It's a totally different circumstance. It's not even close. But see, when you break things down and do research on your own, man, it's like night and day. As they say, night in shining armor. But like I said, man, I root for AD to do good now, man, because he can just focus on playing this game. And, these players, a lot of these superstars, man, they need to realize, when you enter in your prime, and if your team is showing improvement, man, to where maybe they can make a key trade to put you in position to vie for a title, you may as well stay with your own team, dog. Just stay with your own team because you never know what can happen. They value you that much where they willing to give you a supermax. Who knows what AD career would be right now. I'm sure he won an MVP, the player of the year. Who knows? Maybe New Orleans do build a team because they was in the second round and only lost to Golden State. Who went on to go back to back. It wasn't like they lost to Portland in the first round. And they upset Portland. So they had an upward trend as a franchise, But in saying this, man, there are examples where, yes, trades are there to be made when it's the appropriate time, when you reach a certain stage of your team development, and the Lakers were always good in it. As a matter of fact, when you look back at it, man, all this talk about the Lakers stealing players all the time, you really look back at it, Wood retired in 1974. He got traded to the Lakers. I think he was past his prime. He was past his prime. And he played 5 years, and then they acquired Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That was the last significant blockbuster trade. And the next big acquisition they made was 2 decades later in 1996 when they signed Shaquille O'Neal. But when they signed Shaquille O'Neal, that was the same year where they brought in Kobe Bryant, and they was already a playoff level team. They didn't mortgage the future to get Shaq. See? And then you can say the next big move was Gasol. So you talking about another 12 years later? You see what I'm saying? But in these past 6 years, because of the hurricane and this insatiable need by the talking heads to see him win no matter what, they've traded for 3 superstars in 6 years and have essentially given up a combination of like in those trades, like when you start talking about young talent or players who you just signed to your team, a combination like 10 players and like first round, second round picks, you talking about like over 10 total draft picks and 10 players? What are we talking about? But I just want to drop there real quick, man. I would like for you, please share your comments and your thoughts. I just want to drop this golden nugget. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Until next time, this is JB. This is BTB. This is Behind the Bench.